to flick over. Hey, it's Nicole Butler, and this is Allow Your Inner Sparkle to Shine podcast series. And I've got with me Bryan White. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me join you on your podcast, Nicole. I'm excited to be here.
I know, and I'm super excited that you are as well. I just know where this conversation is going, and which is going to lead to amazing things that I love talking about. So I wanted to ask you first of all. Yeah, cool. We are live. Okay. So the podcast is about allowing your inner sparkle to shine. And I wanted to ask you more about if you could let us know of something that you've been through or a tribulation that kind of set you up to think, you know what, I'm kind of feeling dull, or I'm kind of not, stepping into who I really am. And, I know you're doing what you're passionate about doing. And so what was the situation or situations behind that, please?
I'm going to take you guys on a bit of a journey here, and we're going to go back in time here a while. Okay. So I'm going to go back probably a good, at least 7 to 10 years now. And I was in a space in my life where I truly was just not happy. I was not recognizable. I was in a really, really dark, awful space. And now it wouldn't have seemed, if you knew me from the outside, it would have never seemed like that. I had a family. I had a nice place to live. I had a decent vehicle. We had a decent job. On the outside, everything looked status quo, really nice. But on the inside, I had nothing. I was a broken, distraught mess. And finally, one day, I woke up and I looked in the mirror and I realized I didn't know who was looking back in the mirror. I didn't recognize the person. I didn't like the person. I wanted nothing to do with the person looking in the mirror. And it shocked me. It scared me a little bit, actually. And it sent this mix, I'm going to call it a mixed emotion now. It was a space of, on one side, I felt this anger and this dislike and this ugliness for the person staring back at me. But on the other side, it kind of ignited a little spark. It kind of gave me that, like, well, what are we going to do about this? Like, who's this person looking back? It was this powerful question. Who am I? What am I? And just starting from that day, it sent me on a trajectory that has changed my life. Absolutely. You wouldn't recognize me and be able to tell the same person from then to now. 180, 360 people, like, it's catastrophically different. But it really embraced my desire and my need and my want to transform my life into something I wanted, to be able to recognize it, to design my own life, to structure it in ways that I wanted. And out of that grew a concept over the last handful of years, and I've fine-tuned it over the last while. I'm building it into a coaching framework as we've kind of go here and it develops. And I call it Get Selfish. I think more people need to redefine and restructure their mindset around the concept of let's get selfish. Because typically the definition of being selfish is looking after yourself and your own interests and desires. And we've had a really socialized negative connotation around selfishness. If someone walked up to you and called you selfish, we take that as a really negative thing. And honestly, now I want people to spin that around. I want, when someone calls you selfish, for you to go, yeah, I am selfish. Look at me go. Because the best thing we can transform selfishness is into self-love and self-care. We can turn our path and our desires and our needs and our wants and our goals and our abilities into what do we need? Really, let's look at ourselves. And that's what I had to do. That's where I really started from, of this place of darkness to a desire that got lit one day by looking in that mirror and asking a question, and how it's transformed my life to places I could never imagine that I've gotten to do, opportunities. it's been a little wild. If I can dive into that a bit further as well, then the way that we came out of that, and I've walked through everything from separation, I've walked through everything from changing my location of where I lived a few times, changing jobs multiple times, and all these spaces that allow you to walk through different seasons, different chapters of your life. But you have to be able to always be building upon your true self, your core values, your core passions, your core mindsets, your boundaries, your growth mindsets, and always being a continual learner. For me, it's every step of the way I've taken a learning opportunity out of that. And so kind of trying to put this all together here, it's a space where we really need to, as a society, as people, look inwardly, really take a deep inward and look at ourselves, like look in the mirror and ask yourself, who are you? What do you want? Where are you going? How can you be your best self and live your most thriving life? Because for the majority of right now, we're merely surviving. We are spinning our wheels, living in our comfort bubble, and that's okay. I get that we get there, but we can't stay there. And so it's that positions in life where every day you need to wake up and be able to live within your beliefs, your morals, your values, your standards, your boundaries. And it takes getting selfish to really know those and understand them. Because so many of us have been washed away of those. We no longer know who we are. We've let our boundaries become eroded because of people pleasing or a little bit of myself type A personality, where we are always so highly trying to achieve that we kind of put that standard of achievement above everything else. And we forget that, I'm not healthy anymore. I've driven myself to panic attacks. I've driven myself to ulcers. I've driven myself physically unwell because I've put everyone else's priorities. I've put my career ahead of myself. And you know what the result of that is? You might have been up here in your career because that's what you were doing, but you don't sustain that. It crashes and it burns hard. All because you've got to a point where you're burnt out, you're toast, and the people around you now see that. Where the really cool part is, when you get selfish and you look after yourself, your values, your mindsets, your boundaries, you can take that career level and double it. You can keep thriving. You can keep going because you're healthy and the people around you see it. And you've poured into yourself, and so you can pour into everybody else around you.
No, I totally resonate with that. It was last year I said, this year is my year of concentrating on my health. Years before that, there was family members with cancer, other family members with cancer, sickness, and I was really caring for all of them. And it took a toll on me as well. And I was I've even written a song actually about looking in the mirror and not recognizing, who's looking back at you, because you know yourself for a certain way, and then suddenly you're like, hang on, where am I? I know I'm in there somewhere. And so that's why I'm understanding exactly like what you're saying. And it really takes that moment where you're like, nah, you know what, I do have to think about myself. And a lot of, I'm like that. I'll think about a lot of other people as well and put their needs first. And then this time I was like, nope, I've got to be doing what I'm doing, because otherwise we can't help other people. But we do have to put ourselves first. Selfish is, there's that stigma around being selfish, but it's more about self-care, looking after yourself, taking time out, just mentally, just to be able to just, because sometimes there's days where, people can't even get up, and actually do certain things that they used to be able to do, or they don't get excited about things that they used to. And it's like when you're actually honest with yourself and go, you know what, I am important, and that that you should allow your own inner sparkle to shine. And why do that at the expense of others? Like, why not do that, you know?
Absolutely.
So when you were at that stage where you were like looking in the mirror, and it's really like you feel like you got to kind of dig your way out of this hole where you're looking up and you're like, how do I get back up there? Right. And it's like, what type of mindset did you have to have, or what type of self-talk did you have to have for you to get through each day?
That's a fantastic question, because it's so crucial of the self-talk and the mindsets you have to develop. It's not about having them, because I'm not gonna lie, I did not have any quality self-talk. I did not have any mindsets of self-growth, and I was in such a place, and I know that there's many people out there that you're in this place where the concept of even saying nice words to yourself is absolutely, it sounds ridiculous at that point. But we have to rewire our minds and be able to it's almost forcing yourself. It's taking that one step at a time. And whether it starts with saying one single nice thing about yourself in the mirror, or it's doing one small itty bitty minute little thing of that self-love and care, whatever it is for yourself, whether it's you love to paint. And you know what? So you're going to take one evening and you're going to paint. You're going to put everything else away. I'm not saying you need to do it 5 nights a week and do it, make it a ritual. No, we're going to start with one. But it's forcing yourself to start. It's taking action. Yeah. There's nothing more powerful than taking action. Because yes, I could have looked in that mirror and said all these things that I wanted to change, and I wanted to get out of this place, and I wanted to see a different person. But without any action, nothing is going to change. So the secret to it becomes starting with a small action and forcing yourself to implement one small action a day, and then maybe growing that to 2 a day, then 3 a day, then really letting yourself restructure, maybe learning a new skill, learning a new habit, implementing a new idea in your day. One small thing, let them combine together, let them accumulate as they grow, and have a little bit of what I like to call, back to self-love, a little bit of self-acceptance that you're not going to get there every day, especially when you're first starting. Let's have a little bit of kindness to ourselves, because that's okay. If you missed today, or you didn't have the energy, then accept that. Do not beat yourself up. Like, don't let that just put the fire out and you're quit, you're done, you missed a day, it's all over. No. Accept it and go, okay, tomorrow's a new day. We're going to do this again tomorrow. Let's try again tomorrow. There's that phrase that says, draw your line in the sand. And I like to tell people, you're not just drawing one line, you're drawing a lot of lines, because every day you get a new opportunity to draw that line again and start again.
Definitely. I feel that power of our self-talk. I found someone got me once to just say one simple phrase, and I had to look them in the eye and say it. And I couldn't actually say it. I was crying about it, thinking, how can I not just say this? And it was something to do with myself and, saying a positive thing about myself. But it was something that had such a root, like a stronghold or a root inside me, that was like, I really had, after so long, I believed it, even though it went against what I really know about myself, my core value. Then it contradicted that. And I was like, my shifting point was when I was able to say that, and they got me to say it every day after that. And I was just like, such a wake up call of like, wow, I can't even believe you can't even say that, Nicole. Like, I was really, upset with myself, but also sad that it was something that didn't, stick within what I knew about myself. And I think when we overcome that biggest thing that we're thinking, whatever it is, it can be different for everybody. But when we overcome that, then we're able to go do little steps at a time to go further and further. And that's when you really hone in on what you really love doing, And I can tell that you're really passionate about helping people and coaching them. What made you realize that you wanted to coach people through this?
I've always had a passion for people. And at first, it might have been a little bit of a toxic passion and being that people pleaser and being that overachiever. But what it really always honed down to is I've always had a heart of servitude. I've always had a heart of giving and wanting to help people. And the more that I learned and the more that I was able to develop my growth mindset, work with amazing mentors, have some phenomenal coaches really get behind me, and actually start to see the people that really truly cared about me when I was able to reopen my eyes and see that I'm not alone anymore. It's not just me in this dark hole. There's people out there that love me and want me to succeed and do better. And
Yeah.
over the years, I've developed, and I think it's just been an innate passion for taking people that are in those positions and reaching down into that hole for them and giving them my hand, because there's nothing more powerful than someone reaching down and giving you their hand. I talk about a lot in my podcast, and one of my favorite things to talk about is ripples. We are the ripples in the pond, and we put our ripples out there, and we may not always get to see who we touch and how far those ripples reach.
Yeah.
But in any pond, when you throw your pebble and start a ripple, it creates bigger ripples. So it's a little bit of a hand in hand, as I'm going to put it, thing. I want to create a ripple so that other people can create a ripple, so we can change the world by creating ripples.
Yes, I love that. I'm always saying about that. That ripple effect on people is just phenomenal. We can just do one little thing. And it is so important to be concentrating on getting around people that are loving you, that you trust, because that's a big thing. And I found that I had to, let go of some people that were kind of holding me back. They maybe had disbelief about their own self, and that kind of was pulling me back, where I was like, and it was a little bit confusing, because you think, that they're supposed to be with you through this journey, but when you let them go and then you move forward more, it's just amazing how you do sparkle even more, and you're able to really go to higher levels and achieve more. And your self-doubt, like maybe you were just picking up on their self-doubt again, you know what I mean? Like, it's not even like some of their self-talk goes on to you, and you're like, hang on, wait, why am I saying that? So it's really, I'm always talking about power of proximity. It does really matter who you're hanging around. So did you find that you had to let some people go and, and go closer to some other people and to get support from either strangers or people you knew, or how did you find it?
This is going to make me sound like a completely awful person, but absolutely, because I had to cut so many people out of my life completely. I had to develop absolute new, strong, healthy boundaries. I didn't know before how important and how valuable boundaries really were. Heck, I didn't know what my own boundaries were at one point, until I started creating them and seeing the effects of setting these boundaries. There were people that I was spending time with that were toxic, that were really not doing things that I myself wanted to do. But because I was allowing myself to be within that crowd, I was creating myself in those habits. They say that you are the sum of the top 5 people that you spend time with, that you are going to become and accumulate the habit of the top 5 people you're spending time with. So I'll put it in the context that, like I was spending time with people who were into a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs, a lot of really poor mindsets, a lot of people who were really into a lot of wrong decisions. And at that time, where was my life going? So it really wasn't until one, I had to realize, what are these people doing? Does it align with my values, my core? Does it what I really want to be doing and growing into? 2, I had to get around people that I wanted to grow from, to learn from. And to this day, I'm always searching for that person that I can learn from, that has a better habit, has a tool, has a mindset that I can learn from, because I want to learn and glow from them.
Yeah.
And it's all about creating, how do I going to put it? Creating healthy boundaries, really self-acknowledging those boundaries and making the hard choices sometimes. I cannot stress enough, and I know that it sucks. I'm going to be very bluntly clear about this. We're going to embrace the suck. Sometimes putting those boundaries in place really sucks. But the result can be astronomical. I'll share a bit of a personal story here where a handful of years ago, I had to set a really strong boundary with my own mother. And that was no fun. That sucked. The backstory to it a little bit in context is I had just met a new partner and I had recently separated from my other partner before. And my mother was really not okay with the situation. She was being very toxic, rude, disrespectful to my new partner. And I had to set a boundary where it became, you are now going to respect my new partner and you're going to treat her as a person and you're going to move past your own issue, or we're not going to continue to have these conversations. And that was my own mother. Like, that was hard.
Yeah,
but
it is.
from that day of setting that really strong, healthy boundary, they now have a phenomenal relationship. I have a phenomenal relationship with my mother. And the hurt in that moment and the pain that it took to have that healthy boundary created a way stronger, healthier relationship and better future. So yes, I will round that all about that. Sometimes you have to do the hard stuff. You have to build your boundaries. You have to cut ties with people that maybe you've been friends with them for 10 years. But you know what? If they are not aligned with your core values, your passions, your desires, and your growth spectrum to go forward, cut them. I know it sounds awful. Cut them. Today, do it. Gone. Done.
Yeah. Yeah, because it can mean that you go, like it's just one of those words that they say, one of the sentences they say, whatever they talk over you and they think, or even what they accuse you of, you're like, seriously? Some moments I'd be like, what? Do you really think that of me? It's like you just don't even need that in your life because you need people that are believing in you and loving on you. And obviously those other people have their own reasons for that, but that's not what you have to be, welcoming into your life or having around. Good on you for being able to put the boundaries in place because that's tricky. So good.
I'm going to put this note out there that the moment you start embracing your boundaries and you cut those people, you'd be surprised how many of those people, it comes down to the ripples again, how many of those people start to take a good hard look at themselves and then they see you down the road and go, oh, you've really changed. What have you done? How can they kind of want to come back and learn from you?
Yeah, actually that's true. Yeah, they'll see such a big difference and be like, well, what happened here? And it's, yeah. Then it's up to you then to put your boundary in and see what they're like, whether they come in or not, or they watch from afar as well, Yeah, that's going to happen. And then tell us about how you, how Thriving Chronicles came about and what kind of motivated you and the funness of it, even though it's hard and tricky sometimes. The fun bit.
Oh, it can be very hard and tricky sometimes. As you're well aware, being a podcast host is a whole lot of fun, but there's a lot of work that goes behind it. So people who get to watch these videos and think, oh, how easy it is, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of work that goes into these things. But anyways, so the story behind the Thriving Chronicles podcast really developed in a couple of different stages. It started to develop quite a while back from a passion and a desire to have my own podcast. I've always listened to podcasts. I've always really enjoyed them. I've got a whole list, this whole spectrum of podcasts that I personally listen to. And I've always thought to myself, I'd love to be able to connect with people and share stories and inspire people and teach people through a form of a podcast, but never really knew how I wanted to go about doing it. And for the longest time, I let a lot of fear and a lot of my own mindsets get in the way. I was completely guilty of playing that game. Who's going to listen to me? Who
Ah.
wants to hear what I have to say?
Ah.
That sat there for a while. And so I actually joined a good friend of mine, Josh, who is the host of Rebel Health Collective podcast, who I'm talking to him and we're going back and forth. And finally he sits there and asks me and goes, Bryan, why haven't you done this yet? And again, it was a simple question. I went, because I let fear speak into me and I'm procrastinating. And all it took is him looking at me and going, well, cut it out. Just go do it. And in my side, for some reason, something just clicked. And I went, huh, I guess I will. So it came down to action. I was letting fear take away my form of action and holding me back from those actions. So
Awesome.
I already had the developing progress of my Get Selfish theory and a couple of other articles that I've kind of written. I've got another one that I have called Where's Your Bar Set? It's all about basically living in a world of comfort and raising your bar and achieving higher than your bar to live more of a thriving life.
Awesome.
And I have a handful of other articles that I've written there all through our social media that really are about inspiring and changing your life and embracing different aspects of it. Another one that I really enjoy that's in our social media aspects is letting your skeletons loose. And it's all about embracing and being okay with the fact we have all got skeletons, but don't let them hold you back from embracing your life. So there's so many factors to it. It came from the stage of wanting to do it and being inspired by other podcasts to starting writing more and building my concepts and some articles to a good friend of mine finally kicking my butt and saying, time to do it. And me getting over my fear and mindsets and saying, no, it's action time, putting down the action and just getting it started. And it's been incredible. The response from the guests and the people that I've met from around the world and the stories that we've got to share have been incredible. There's been some powerful overcoming challenges, redirections of life, inspiring, and some people that have such knowledge and insights that I learn something every time I get to talk to them. And I've made new friendships from it. So the format of the Thriving Chronicles podcast is truly about sharing stories of overcoming, persevering, adapting, and building a life of no longer merely surviving, but absolute thriving. And I'm going to pose to you a question that I like to end all of my podcasts with because I love this question with a dear passion. And my question that I put to you, Nicole, is what is your definition of truly living your best life?
Okay, that's a good one. So my definition is how I'm doing it right now. So I get to choose what I do, when I do, how I do it. If something comes up and spontaneous that I need to do, then I do it. So people say like, when I'm retired, I'm going to do this. So when I'm retired, I'm going to do that. But I don't live it like that. I live it like that's what I'm doing now. So I'm pretty sure I'd be doing this, if not something else that I've moved on to when I'm retired. So yeah, I think it's about just really being the core of who you really are. And, you know, I really believe in that, allowing people's inner sparkle to shine. And my name means Nicole. Like Nicole means victorious, victory of people. So I love it when people are living victoriously. So I pretty much know that I'm just going to live the rest of my life where I'm just encouraging people to live a victorious life, which they can then obviously see what I'm doing and learn off me. Life hasn't been easy. I'm sure yours hasn't been easy either. So that's how I see what it is.
That's beautiful.
Thanks. Yes.
So from here, I'm really curious to know a little bit about how you started your podcast. I'd love to hear a little bit about how your podcast got started, because I know that we all get started in different ways.
Okay. So mine was birthed because when I was going for Mrs. Australia International, I really had to hone in and think, what do I want? What's my, purpose in life, or what do I really want to be doing? And so that's when I worked out to allow your inner sparkle to shine. And it made me realize that, going through different, situations or seasons through people's lives, people need like a community around them that are like-minded, that have got life experience, and that can help them through their stages. So that's where I got birthed Sparkling Angels, and that's where my podcast got birthed, which I started out doing, and their story continues. And then from there, I'm now doing the Allow Your Inner Sparkle to Shine. And then I've also got another theme happening soon as well. So that's where my podcast started. It was from being in the international pageant to then going, okay, how do I want to reach people? And I knew I was already doing motivational speaking. So I was already reaching out to people anyway. And so I ended up saying, nah, let's do podcasts and let's do YouTube channels. Actually, I already had a YouTube channel from like probably a decade ago. And if you go and have a look at it, it's like got all these playlists you can just see the videos of like how much I've changed. But that's why I actually started the podcast, because of the Allow Your Inner Sparkle to Shine theme. Yeah.
And when we spoke off air a little while ago, you said you've also got a radio show?
Yeah, so I was on the radio this morning. It's a local radio station, and it's called Faithful Business Network. That's our theme. So I'm a business advisor. It's called a business acquisition specialist, if you want to know the longer word. But we interview business owners. Someone actually came on this morning. He was actually talking about, because we talk about all different stuff as well. So his problem with anorexia. So he was also talking about that. We have other different people coming on, and that's also, we do that as a podcast too. So you can find them on my YouTube channel. But anyway, and we also play music, and it's so amazing how you just get to choose your own music, and you just get to meet new people and get to hear more of people's stories. And also I just want to be helping people have a voice, have a louder voice, because I felt like when I was younger, my voice wasn't heard. So then that's why the radio station and the podcast also comes into play, being helping people have their voice heard. Yeah.
So it sounds like everything that you've put together really rounds itself around the concepts of uplifting people and, as you just said, giving people a voice. And it sounds like that's what we really resonated over with when we connected here, that both of our podcasts really share that commonality of wanting to give people a powerful voice to share their stories and let their stories be told.
Yeah, I know. And it's just because you just don't know, right? And it's that ripple effect. You just don't know a conversation that someone has, or, someone listens to something, and then that way, it can help another person, and then that helps another person. And if that person, when I'm interviewing people, I interview in a certain way of listening, and asking questions. And it might not be what other podcasters might do, you would have your own way of asking questions like you've just done. And so if we didn't have this conversation, then someone might not have asked me that. And then people don't get to know that about me because I haven't been asked a question, So that's the power of this, right? It's like how everyone has their own interpretation and their own way of asking questions to then let people's voice be heard. Because it's just phenomenal how much we can actually help people with our story, I
truly believe there's nothing more powerful than the human story. There's nothing more powerful than people being able to connect together and build communities and embrace each other's stories and learn from them and grow from them. And I really think that that's how we're going to create change in our world. That's how we're going to uplift everybody in our world, is by coming together and sharing and being connected people.
Yeah, that's right. It is about that connection. Connection is so important. if you don't have connection, then I feel like, and then that's why I think we just straight off went off the bat and just did this podcast. And it's amazing because you also talk the way I talk as well. And it was just amazing that, the way I really love how we're on the same journey. It feels like we're on the same journey of helping people do the same thing. And it's just going to be so powerful. And I love that, even though it is tricky doing these stuff, I just love more about, those because really it's about setting up like a business in a way, right? I love business talk. So setting up a business and setting up all these intricate things, like you've got to think about so much things like branding. It's even, how you're going to be doing it, why you're going to be doing it, when are you going to be doing it. And then you've got to portray that message onto your audience. And so when you were thinking of Thriving Chronicle, I know you were thinking thriving, but what was Chronicle about?
The Chronicles were a little bit of the tail end of, I wanted it to be an everlasting story. I wanted it to be a chronicles of stories. I wanted it to be an extension of not just one story, but multiple stories that have a length of spread that I've had conversations where these stories we've started with will become multiple episodes. They'll become chronicles of episodes because they start in one place, but it's so much fun to see where we get to go and then reconnect and see where that gets to go and follow people's evolution of growth in their journeys. So a lot of the Thriving Chronicles came from a space of wanting an ambitious life, to know there's more, to be passionate about truly that thriving. Thriving to me means living your best life. Thriving means powerful ambition and love and excitement and energy into stories. And so, as you've probably seen, that even on my own, all these podcasts, I'm sure yours has and mine has, they all evolve over time. I started with one piece of cover page that I learned and I grew into a completely different cover page today. I started with one kind of entry and format of how I introduce people and let in to a whole different format that I use now. So it's about evolving, never being stagnant and never sitting still, continually learning, evolving in everything we do, whether that's our podcast, whether that's business, our life.
Yes. I love that, which was, you're so good, because that's what was my question. Where do you see yourself in the future? What have you got planned?
I've got big plans. I'm going to put it right there. I have big plans. I like to call them big plans because I'm manifesting all of these in my head and I speak the energy into them. My big plans that I've put out into the universe is that I have desires to be a keynote speaker one day. I would like to be on stage, inspiring people, speaking to people, and sharing these stories, sharing my concepts, and putting that out in the world. I hope to one day have a very successful, long-running podcast. I want to be one of those podcasters who turns into the Mel Robbins or the Jonathan Fields or any of those really successful people who have created huge followings. From there, I am working on getting my coaching practices together. I do have the dream one day to go be a John Maxwell certified coach. That's like my lofty dream. There's a couple other coaching practices and modalities that I really want to get into and kind of dabble with and play with. So I've got a whole spectrum of things that I've kind of got on my plate to go. And I'm really excited to see where those journeys take us.
Wow, I love that. That is so, that is really, 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 really good. That's actually similar to what I'm doing already. So I might flick you my website to give you some ideas. But that's amazing. Yeah. Like you can definitely get that done. Smashing that out is like, yeah, you can definitely blitz that, that's so someone once said to me that one of their goals is to have a podcast. And then I'd already had one. So I was like, oh yeah. Oh, but it's still, important to them, right? And but to you, could you see now if someone said to you they really want a podcast, you'd be like, okay, well, what's stopping you, right? So now for you being a keynote speaker and for being amazingly well known, you can see how that can so easily happen. Yeah?
Oh, that's what I'm dreaming for. I can envision myself being on a stage one day, sharing my get selfish concept with people and uplifting them from their dark spaces and letting people know that there is a whole life out there. There is more to life than what we open our eyes to. There's more to life than what we're ever told. And here's one that I want to put out to your audience, to everybody, to you. Never live in a space where you just accept what you're told and what you see. Because those people that own mega yachts, and yeah, it's not about the stuff, but I'm just using this as a perspective. Those people that own mega yachts are buying $10,000 watches, drive Lamborghinis and have 4 of them in their garage, and travel the world. Those things are possible. They're not just fallacies that are unattainable to us. Those people have worked for them, and that's why they are there. Even I'll bring it down to the aspect of when you go to the store and you walk through your local mall and you see a jacket that is a $300 jacket, and you go, that's an expensive jacket. Well, guess what? They wouldn't make that jacket if there weren't people buying it.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's all these things. That life and a greater, bigger, more powerful life, it is there. It's attainable. It's doable.
Yeah, it sure is. I would say earrings and shoes, but anyway, and the jackets. But it's so true. It's really our mind that thinks, there's a limit, and it really, there doesn't have to be. And everyone deserves that. And even if you have had it before, you can have it again. You just have to keep going, going, going. And then you're able to reach higher levels, as well.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I got to throw this in there too. You just said it and I love it. If you've had it before, you can have it again. I know so many people that have been at the pinnacle of their career and they've been in places of success, or they've had all these miraculous things. And well, life has just kind of happened. Things do happen. I hate to say it, but bad things happen even to good people. But that doesn't mean we stay in those bad places. Just because something bad happened, we fell down, we get back up and we do it again. We had it once, you can do it again.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I know. That's what they have to hold on to. That was an awesome interview. I loved having you on my podcast. Did you want to say any parting words, even though that was actually a really awesome ending?
Other than I would love for people to check out the Thriving Chronicles podcast. It's available on all streaming platforms. It's available on our Facebook under the Thriving Chronicles podcast, Instagram, TikTok, and I just recently figured out I've been playing with a Substack. So all my written articles and podcasts are accessible through there as well. And if there are people who are out there that are feeling in that dark space and they are looking for some tools and ideas, please reach out to me and I'd love to share more and see if I can help them. I am always just an email, a Facebook message away. I like to be pretty prompt about getting back to people as fast as I can. And I'm just really grateful for you allowing me to be on your podcast and share my message, my story, share about my podcast. And I've really enjoyed this. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I really loved having you. So just reminding you all, it's the Thriving Chronicle. Yes, not Thriving Chronicle. Yes.
Yep.
And so head on over So head on over to his Facebook page, Instagram, and all that. And then that way you'll be able to follow him more. And thank you so much, Bryan, for being on. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to what the future has for you and future podcasts with you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye.